frustrated.
This is Ryan Whedon.
You got it.
And I'm Matt Fisher. And I'll be your host this evening with Ryan sitting silently next to me. Yeah, podcast isn't really a good forum for mime. Maybe we should scratch this idea.
We didn't really think this through, did we? All right. Well, different gimmick next week. What's the rumpus, Matt?
Same old, I suppose.
Yeah. Did you gain any superpowers today?
During the supernatural event, I gained the ability to have spots in my eyes.
I looked at the sun, even though they tell you not to do it. It was like I figured
You were just following the president's lead.
I figured I could do a quick glance up and glance down, which I did, and immediately, my eyes holes were burned into them.
It's like when you see someone hot in the locker room at the gym.
Just a quick glance look away. But the after image when I closed my eyes was of an eclipse sun. So I feel like I kind of saw it.
Yeah. Part of me wishes, because some of my friends went to Oregon and camped out and went to a beautiful spot to be in the path of totality.
Yeah.
And part of me wishes I would have done that, but also walking to work, because I timed my walk to work to be during peak coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of cool walking through a familiar place with this different lighting on it.
Yeah.
With, it was definitely kind of cool being in a familiar spot in an unfamiliar light.
Agreed.
Yes.
I'm kind of glad to get all this total eclipse stuff behind us.
Did you listen to Bonnie Tyler while looking at the eclipse?
No.
What is a total eclipse of the heart?
Yeah, good question.
Is your heart behind the sun or in front of it?
I guess your heart would be the sun, and then something's blocking out your heart.
That sounds like a medical problem.
Yeah. Nurse, give me 5 cc's of something. We've got a total eclipse of the heart over here. You know how many Americans we lose to a total eclipse of the heart every year?
If it's for every person who does it at karaoke, I do have an idea.
Sad.
Hashtag sad.
Hashtag sad. So.
Yes.
What'd you watch this week?
I watched you watching Baby Driver.
Oh yeah, we watched the movie together this week.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we both saw Baby Driver.
Indeed.
At the cinema. And yeah, it was alright. I enjoyed it.
I liked it too.
I don't remember his name, but little Twinkie boy was easy on the eyes.
Ansel Elgort.
Least Twinkie name, but
I couldn't help but think how the movie would be different if he was a black character.
Like if him and Jamie Foxx switched roles.
Yeah. Yeah, because Jamie Foxx was kind of the bad guy.
Yeah, allegiances
guy.
shifted, but he was the one that was consistently not on board with Baby.
Yeah.
And tried to back Baby into a corner.
And Baby's stepdad was black.
Yeah.
So I was...
not stepdad, it was foster father,
Oh,
right?
foster father? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, why couldn't he have just been a black character? That seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. It does seem like it was sort of asking for that, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it didn't diminish my enjoyment of the movie. It was just something I was questioning.
I guess it was just, it was trying to be in line with, other Drive-related movies like Drive or The Driver. With strong, silent, white male types as the lead.
Mm-hmm. Triple feature? Drive, The Driver, Baby Driver?
Except The Driver's not actually a very good movie.
Oh, God.
It's a little lackluster. I like Drive. There's not a lot of driving in it, though.
Yeah, didn't somebody demand their money back because there wasn't enough driving in Drive?
Yeah, someone thought it was going to be like a Fast and the Furious movie. And, yeah, was not pleased with that. I'd say there was a decent amount of driving in Baby Driver, though.
Yeah, it delivered on that. Not enough babies, though.
Yeah.
I was pretty disappointed in the small amount of babies.
Well, don't worry. Our next episode is going to be the Garbage Pail Kids. So.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that documentary Babies that just follows babies around.
No, I haven't actually seen that one.
I haven't either, but I do know that in Lindy West's review, the tagline was, "Babies is baby porn." Wait, that came out wrong.
Unpopular opinion, I don't find babies that adorable.
Oh, me neither. That's not an unpopular opinion in this company.
Give me a movie about puppies or kitties or ducklings.
Sure. Goslings.
Yeah.
Narrated by Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, he can be in it too.
Sure. Bring your whole family, as far as I'm concerned. Although, what if? Yeah, because if there was a movie called Goslings, and I showed up, and it did not include Ryan Gosling and his immediate family, I would demand my money back.
Maybe we should make a habit of demanding our money back for going into movies with wrong expectations.
Yeah. Let's see how many. Let's get a scorecard going.
Like a Baby Driver. Not one baby drove in that movie. I want my money back.
Blade Runner. 2049.
I can think of 2 things wrong with this movie title. Did you watch anything other than Baby Driver?
I did, but I don't know if I want to talk about it.
All right. Lay it on me. How pornographic and how much?
I just ended up... So, 2 episodes ago, we talked about The Electric Grandmother. And a quick YouTube search found it online, available to watch. So, I decided, let's go down childhood lane, and rewatched it.
Nothing cures nostalgia like time travel.
Wow. It was... First of all, it's 45 minutes long. I remember it being much, much longer.
Okay.
Maureen Stapleton is the Electric Grandmother.
Okay.
And she sings in it. The oldest brother is played by the older brother from E.T. I don't know the actor's name.
Oh, okay.
But he's in it. It was written by Ray Bradbury. It's based on one of his short stories.
Sure, he wrote a lot of those.
It was bizarre. Anyway, never need to watch that again.
It wasn't the enthralling romp you were hoping it to be?
No, and in fact, it almost feels like a movie made for grandmothers.
Oh, really?
In that, yeah, it's just super nostalgic and...
I mean, a lot of people make this mistake, but I am not part of that demographic.
I mean, who knew that was a demo to be chasing down? I forgot a part where somebody asks her a question and she's like, click, 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 click. She's like, bing, reach in my pocket. And he pulls out a muffin. And inside the muffin is, like, her response to the question, like, on a piece of paper. So that she just, prints out baked goods somehow?
What was the question? Can you get me a muffin?
That was like, what was I saying at 4 something this afternoon? I almost said 4:20 this afternoon. And the muffin comes out and says, let's get baked. I didn't get the reference as a kid, but now I get it.
Miller's Crossing. Written and directed by the Coen brothers.
Yep.
It was from 1990.
Yep.
Director of photography Barry Sonnenfeld, who went on to direct the Men in Black movies.
That's right.
And I feel that this is sort of overlooked in the Coen catalog.
It was a flop when it came out, because it came out like 2 weeks after Goodfellas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can kind of see why this would be a flop. Like, it's not like a rip-roaring movie.
No.
Especially in comparison to Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Which is like rock and roll start to finish, basically.
Yeah.
It's, 2.5 hours, but...
And just, mobster movie fatigue. Maybe it was a thing in 1990.
But that's too bad. I mean, I love Goodfellas. I'm not going to badmouth that movie.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a shame when stuff gets overshadowed because something else is so popular.
Yeah, indeed.
But this, it's a gangster movie, decidedly more low-key. Was sort of I feel like there's 3 separate camps, all with their own sets of values and ideals in the movie.
Okay.
That are all sort of conflicting you with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the beginning. The scene itself looked very Godfather-y to
Indeed.
me.
Yeah.
The opening scene from The Godfather. You got the Italian mobster, Johnny Casper. You have the Irish, Gabriel Byrne and Albert Finney on the one side, and then you have the Jewish people, Verna and Bernie Birnbaum.
Right.
And they all kind of have, like, each of them are sort of their own camp, I feel. And I feel like that was by design. Like, I mean, this was definitely at a time when being one of those things was sort of a big deal.
Right.
Like, we don't care nowadays if you're Irish or Italian, like, or Jewish. Like, nobody cares. But back then, people cared kind of a lot.
Yeah.
So it seems it wasn't happenstance that they randomly assigned these identities to these characters. It was very much by design, I feel.
And it takes place during Prohibition, sometime during Prohibition,
in some unknown town.
Yeah, we don't know exactly the city. We don't know exactly the year, but roughly 1920s.
Yeah,
America, somewhere in America.
So you had these factions and just sort of the conflicts that arise when there's a power struggle going on, essentially.
Yeah, it's like everything's kind of going along swimmingly until Bernie comes along. Bernie,
yeah.
Bernie comes along and kind of starts
character.
throwing these bets, and Casper's upset, and so he's like, comes to Leo saying, "I want to kill this guy."
So
Is that okay?
The opening scene is sort of interesting because Casper's talking about ethics.
I'm talking about ethics. You know I'm a sporting man. I like to lay the occasional bet. But I ain't that sporting. When I fix a fight, say I pay a 3-1 favorite to throw a goddamn fight, I figure I got the right to expect that fight to go off at 3-1. But every time I lay a bet with his son of a bitch, Bernie Birnbaum, before I know it, the odds is even up. Or worse, I'm betting on the short money. The Sheeny knows I like short things. He's selling the information. I fixed the fight. Out-of-town money comes pouring in. The odds go straight to hell. I don't know who he's selling to. Maybe the Los Angeles Combine. I don't know. The point is, Bernie ain't satisfied with the honest dollar he can make off the Vic. He ain't satisfied with the business I do on his book. He is selling tips on how I bet. And that means part of the payoff that should be riding on my hip is riding on someone else's. So, back we go to these questions. Friendship, character, ethics.
There's a good line where he's like, "Am I clear?" And then Leo goes,
"As mud."
Which is kind of how I felt about a lot of the dialogue in this movie. Yeah, that's sort of like the instigating incident, right? Like, he says, "I want to kill this guy. Is that okay? Do I have your blessing?" And he says, "No, I'm going to protect him." And then cards start to fall from there.
And we find out that it's because Leo is sleeping with Verna.
Right.
Is in love with her, essentially. And Verna is Bernie's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she is purposely using Leo and his power and his influence to make sure that Bernie is protected.
Right, because he's gay.
Yes.
Which is
sort of revealed.
Really buried.
Yeah, they don't explicitly say it.
Yeah, they never do. It's all subtext. And like quotation marks.
There is just sort of they'll say things like, "Oh, he's Bernie's boy."
Right.
And it's sort of like with a wink and a nudge.
We're amigos.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
But and really, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't catch it. Cards on the table. I watched this movie twice because I watched it the first time for the podcast here and was like, man, I don't know if I got everything. So I read the plot synopsis, rewatched it, and basically went through scene by scene because it's so dense. Like,
and it gets more dense as it goes along.
It starts off complicated, and it's like every scene is so compact and dense, and people's motivations change from scene to scene.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a difficult through line to follow. Because almost everybody in this movie doesn't say what they mean. Like, I feel like every line is actually subtext of something else. Like, everybody's coded. And on top of that, they're using lingo that's different.
Yes.
Like, so that's a difficult entry bar, I guess is what I'm saying. So it's like, my first time through, I felt frustrated. I really was my main kind of takeaway at the end.
This is the first time in a long time where I've been watching a movie and I'm like, wait, which side is that guy on?
Yeah.
Wait, why is he doing that? Like, I haven't felt sort of like I'm trying to keep up with a movie in a long time. When I was younger, I used to feel that way all the time.
Right.
You know, I couldn't tell when things like that had changed, and I don't know if that's like a change in movie making, if just the way that things are presented now are much more obvious, and you know, they've determined that audiences don't like being confused,
yeah.
So they don't do that anymore, or if it's just something unique to this movie that it's so dense and that there's so many twists and turns, especially as you go, like it really starts going back and forth.
Second time through was rewarding, but it definitely took like pausing after each scene and then being like, okay, what has changed now? What is happening? What's going into the next scene? What's going to be the
I'm really
deal?
glad that you felt that way, because when I was sitting at home watching it, I was like, man, this, like, you need to pay attention to this movie. Like, you can't casually or passively watch this. You need to, like, watch and listen to know what's going on.
Right. And it's difficult. Like, well, for example, when the only reveals of, like, Mink being in a relationship with, like, the Dane, it happens in the first scene.
Mink is Eddie Dane's boy.
Of course, the Dane always knows about the fix.
And what the hell is that supposed to mean?
Let it drift. All it means is a lot of people know.
That's all we know.
Yeah.
It's kind of explicit once you know going into it. And then the scene with Steve Buscemi, who's playing the Mink, who's actually kind of like cheating with Bernie on the Dane.
Yeah.
He's a fast talker.
Yeah, Tom, that's right, but a guy could have more than one friend, can he? I mean, not that I want the Dane to know about it, but a square G like the Schmott is the right guy, Tom. He's a square shooter. I know he's got a mixed reputation, but for a Sheeny, he's got a lot of good qualities.
So, man, if you don't really sit and listen and realize what's going on, it's just, right over your head.
Yeah.
And I missed it totally the first time through. It's tough.
You know, this is the second time that I've seen the movie, and even then I'm like, I know how this ends. Like, I know what's going on here, but it'd been so long that I couldn't remember specifically what happened. And then even inside of, like, knowing the broad strokes or how things get from point A to point B, there's just so much that goes on. There's so much back and forth that you really have to watch what's happening.
Well, like, yeah, for example, there's a murder that happens early on, and that's this character named the Rug, who we don't ever meet. We only meet him when he's dead.
Yeah.
And he's called that because he has a toupee. And there's, like, 3 or 4 different people that we think kill him throughout the movie. Leo thinks Casper did it.
Casper Poop Rug.
And then later, Tom thinks Verna did it.
Why would I, or my brother, kill Rug Daniels or anybody else?
And then I think Tom even makes the case after a point that the Dane did it.
It don't make sense. Why would he?
That could be a damn good reason.
But then we find out in the very end, the person who finally did it is Mink.
What did Mink shoot Rug anyway?
I don't know. It's just a mix-up.
Because he was worried about getting caught by the Dane having sex with Bernie. So it's like, fuck.
Yeah. So one of the crucial parts in the movie is Tom, after failing to get Leo to give up Bernie, sort of switches sides. He's looking for work, and he goes to Casper for work.
Right.
And Casper agrees to it, but on the condition that, you know, Bernie has to be given up.
Which he does immediately.
Yeah, so he does that, and this gets to, like, an also, like, very morally ambiguous part, because Tom, Gabriel Byrne, is ostensibly our hero, but he gives up Bernie. He knows that giving up Bernie's going to kill him. Mm-hmm. They go to Miller's Crossing, which is this place in the middle of the woods, and he's instructed to kill him. You know, first shot knocks him down, and then you put the second shot in his brain.
Right.
Is the instruction that he's given. Tom didn't bargain that he would be the one doing the killing.
Right.
So he goes out, he fires shots, but he doesn't kill Bernie. It kind of portrays it like he's being merciful, but really, it's just that Tom doesn't want to have that on his hands. And I'm not I don't know if it's just because he doesn't want to, or if he knows that would make things go sour with Verna.
Mm-hmm.
But Bernie was gonna die, and he was okay with it until he was the one that had to do it.
Right.
So it gets real morally ambiguous for me, because it's like he was fine with someone else killing Bernie, but he's not okay killing Bernie.
Every choice in this movie has repercussions that don't go the way people want them to, I guess.
I mean, that's classic Coen brothers.
Yeah.
Every movie is basically there are unintended consequences that people didn't foresee. So, to jump back a little bit, when Casper puts out the hit on Leo at his home, and they shoot the person in like the floor below Leo,
right, and
the guy falls over. He had like a cigar or a cigarette that was lit, starts a fire. Leo's in bed and he sees smoke coming up from the floorboards.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's the exact type of thing that Coen brothers love. Like
totally.
the unintended consequences that there's no way you could have planned for.
Right.
That unravels everything. Like, that's what they love in movies.
That's all this movie is.
Yeah. This is a very Coen brothers movie. It's like scheme, plan, plot, all sort of like working in one mechanism.
Yeah.
And when Leo gets the drop on like the gangsters who are coming into his home after he sees the smoke, and he's like, something's going on. Like, I had so many complex emotions during that scene, like, because it has this, like, really, like, romantic, swelling music playing.
Oh, Danny Boy.
Yeah, in, like, you know, grand singing style. But, so it has this, like, sort of heartstring tugging, like, backdrop to it, like, musical bed to it. But then it's like, what are we actually watching? And it's like, it's built up that Leo's like an old man, that he can't defend himself, but then he proves to be quite spry.
Yeah,
he jumps out the window, gets that Tommy gun, and like blows away the people who are trying to hit him. And it's like not only the two people in his home, but there's also the two people in like the drive-by.
Yeah.
And like he kills them all.
Yeah. I love when he realizes what's going on, he takes his stogie, puts it out, and then puts it in his pocket, and then he pulls it out after he's blown up the car. Like,
it's just. Like, the whole scene, it's thrilling a little bit, because, like, we're seeing a bunch of action, and we haven't really seen any action in the movie thus far.
Right.
It's kind of funny to see, like, this old man jumping out of a window and shooting a Tommy gun and blowing people away. And then the action's really good. It has, like, the little Kill Bill thing where, like, he rolls under the bed, shoots one in the leg, and then shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
There was just, you know, I felt that it was, like, sort of sad, but, like, intense, and, like, it was, you know, the music playing with, like, what we were seeing, it was sort of beautiful, too. Like, it was, I just had, like, a bunch of, like, conflicting emotions while that scene was going on. And it was just a really well-crafted, well-executed scene.
And the hit gets put out on Leo because at the time, he's in control of the mayor and the police.
Yes.
And he causes a raid on one of Casper's speakeasies, and the raid is a retaliation for killing the rug. Yeah, basically,
because at the time Leo thinks that
Casper pooped rug.
Casper pooped rug.
So it's just like, you know, like we're saying, it's just everything gets traced back to a different inciting event, you know, and when you start adding double crossing in there, it gets as twisty as a corkscrew. We have to talk about the hats.
So when I saw this, and the first time I saw it years and years ago, I thought I was like clever by seeing all the hats. And I watched it this one, like they're everywhere. I started marking down how many hat references there were, but like after like the fourth one in like the first 5 minutes, I was like, no, I'm pretty sure like everybody's picking up on this hat thing.
Yeah. What do you think it symbolizes?
Well, I tried figuring it out, and I think putting on the removing of a hat, I think just represents sort of civility, or maybe, you know, common decency a little bit, or something along those lines. That, like, I can't quite articulate it, but there's just a couple times where the way that the hat was played out or the way that it moved. You know, like when it's blowing down Miller's Crossing, and the implication is that someone died.
Sure.
You know, it's, you know, humanity lost there.
Okay.
You know, when Tom is about to sleep with Verna, not the first time, but like halfway into the movie when, you know, things are already morally ambiguous, like the camera very closely like shows him throwing his hat on the chair.
Right.
When Leo's beaten Tom up after like the reveal of the affair. And he's beating him down the hallway.
Yeah.
His hat falls off, but then he picks it up and puts it back on while he gets hit again.
Right.
So, because I watched for it and I tried to figure out if there was any like specific pattern or meaning to the hats, but they showed so much of it, it was hard to find just a single thing. But I think it has something to do with that the hats just represented a civility. That while you had it on, you were a decent functioning member of this society. And when it came off, it was sort of, you know, you weren't anymore.
I see that. I saw it kind of as like a representation of intellect versus emotion.
Oh, okay.
And so when he's talking about his dream, when the hat's blowing through the breeze, he's like, oh, there's nothing worse than a man chasing after his hat. So it's like a man chasing his intellect, like it should be something you maintain and are aware of the whole time.
Okay.
Also, Marcia Gay Harden Verna never wears a hat, even in the rain. There's that like rain scene that she's in. So like she's just like all emotion.
Well, see, with Verna, like that she never wears a hat, like says to me that like she's really like the most unscrupulous of them all.
Oh yeah, maybe.
But it's hard to pin down. Like watching it and even watching it closely, like I can't think of any definitive hat scene that really. Because there's even language about it. Leo's always like, you're trying to hi-hat me.
What is this, the hi-hat?
Well, and then there's like, you know, the term of like, oh, he's a man that wears many hats.
Yeah.
So like it could be interpreted as like someone who's lying a lot. I even feel like the title is a play on hats because Miller is really close to milliner, which is a person who makes hats, and crossing, like double crossing, maybe. It's an interesting thing to think about because at the very end, one of the last shots we get is of Tom pulling his hat down over his eyes, you know, and then the camera coming down to look at his eyes while the hat's so low. And I don't know if that represents like him saying like, I'm going to need this hat more than ever now. Like I cannot trust my emotions. Like I don't know.
Yeah. They're. I mean, I don't even know if it's something to be got. Like, if that, you know, if it actually means any of those things. But, because, there's nothing in there that really, to me, defines the importance of what those hats are. But there's a lot to unpack in this movie.
Like we said, like a dense dessert of chocolate cake that's mostly eggs. This movie is difficult to finish in one sitting.
No yeast.
Yeah. Whew. Barely any flour. A teaspoon of flour.
Tom lets Bernie go.
Yes.
He shoots the gun that gives off the appearance that he shot Bernie. But he tells him to go. And a couple weeks ago, when we briefly talked about Inside Llewyn Davis, and I said there's like literally like a Schrodinger's cat in that movie.
Right.
Where, like he leaves a cat in a car with a body that may or may not be dead, and may or may not be condemning the cat to death. I feel like him letting Bernie go creates that same sort of dilemma. Like he both is and is not dead. Yeah. He is dead to all the people that it counts for, but he is not actually dead.
Right.
And that creates a sort of different type of tension, because then it's like anytime he's talking to Casper, there's this undercurrent of, oh God, he knows.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard to then trust anything that Casper's saying. Like,
I didn't think of that, yeah.
That's the way that I took it, because then it was like, oh God, he knows. Bernie ratted him out, or somebody saw something, or they caught him, or...
And so he's kind of playing a cat and mouse game with Tom?
Yeah.
Casper.
I mean, that was like how I took every interaction Casper and Tom had after that scene.
Just toying with him?
Yeah, because there was no way to really know, you know, if he was being nice to him, like, oh, is he leading him on? Is he trying to get Tom to put his guard down? Like that's what was going through my mind. Like if I'm like, he's nice, is he being too nice? Does he look upset? Like I kept looking at every interaction they had through that lens, because like I remembered that Tom let Bernie go, or at least while I was watching, I was like, I think he lets him go.
I didn't remember either, actually.
So I didn't remember like the immediate aftermath either, and I was like, I don't understand. I don't remember how that plays out. I mean, we find out, Bernie then gets it in his head that he can use this as leverage against Tom and comes back to blackmail him.
Right.
So it's like Bernie at the beginning of the movie is Tom's friend. Tom rats him out because he feels that it'll be better for everybody. Tom spares Bernie, even though he knows that this is going to cause a lot of complications. Bernie throws it in his face
like
and
a
uses
deceptive
it for
homosexual.
And then that creates a whole set of problems too.
Yeah.
Because now he's being blackmailed by the person that he showed forgiveness and sympathy to.
Right. And that's actually I think John Turturro gives a bravura performance in this movie, and that is maybe my favorite scene that he does, because he really plays
when he comes back.
Yeah, when he comes back, it's funny because he knocks before he breaks in.
Oh yeah,
and which I think is really cute. But then like when he's explaining the situation where he's like,
it's a painful memory, and I can't help remembering that you put the finger on me, and you took me out there to whack me. I know. You didn't, I know. You didn't shoot me, but
what have I done for you lately?
Don't smart me.
It's just so nuanced and really well acted, and just takes the words and delivers them perfectly. It's such a good performance from him.
The Coens do a thing. They do it with Bernie, and they do it with Albert Finney. With Albert Finney, it was like they build an impression that he's a tired old man, and that he couldn't handle a mob war, and then that is dispelled when the hit is actually put on him and he kills them all.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Bernie, because like they make him look awkward and fidgety and scrawny, but when he confronts Tom and Tom tries to hop out the window and kill him, Bernie was anticipating it and like trips him and he falls and everything. It's like, we didn't give Bernie enough credit.
Right.
What were you gonna do if you caught me? I just squirt a few and then you let me go again.
He's a more worthy adversary than we initially anticipated.
Indeed.
There's a lot of ambiguity. I mean, the Coens love ambiguity. They love trapping their characters in uncertainty, and this movie has a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm not going to say it's a fault, because once I kind of had an idea of what was going on, I really felt it's well done and good. But it is a little impenetrable the first time through. Like which makes me wonder, like, there's so many critics out there that were like, I read a lot of reviews of it saying, like, this is a great movie, and this is, like, people who were reviewing it in 1990.
Yeah.
Like, how many times did you see this movie? Because, like, I don't know, coming out of it, just seeing it one time, I'd be able to say, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
There's just too much information in that hour and 45 minutes.
What makes this one different is, like, A, it's so dense, it's so compact, and I watch other movies, like their later movies, and not that necessarily they're simple, but it's almost as if they realize that maybe they got a little too dense for their own good. Because, their bigger movies, Fargo, I guess would be, probably their most popular. I watch it, and that one is so simple by comparison to Miller's Crossing.
Totally.
Like, you have basically just, like, one storyline with, like, a couple different characters who have, like, different things that they want. Whereas this, like, you have, like, a handful of very complex characters who want different things and go about it in very tricky ways.
Yeah. And our protagonist in Fargo, it doesn't change. She's like a straight line, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's always just trying to solve this crime. Whereas our protagonist in this movie shifts constantly.
Yeah.
Like, from scene to scene, his loyalty is to himself.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
But then, like, how he works to manipulate people around him is constantly shifting. We never know who he's aligned with.
And it's not just him trying to be the puppet master. Other people are doing the same thing with him. So then, it's not him playing chess with other people. It's everyone playing chess with each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets real dense real quick because yeah, you think that Tom is, you know, the right-hand man to Leo, but then it's like, oh, you find out that he's sleeping with his girl, and then, you know, when Leo doesn't take his advice, it's over. Like, he doesn't seem to have any hurt feelings that, like, he was kicked to the curb. He goes straight to Casper for work.
Yeah. He's sort of like, well, I'm out of a job.
Yeah.
Gonna go to this other mob boss now.
Yeah. Even by the Coen's own standard, it's like this one is particularly dense.
So I got the impression at the very end that Leo thought that Tom was playing him the whole time so that he could get Casper out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like, you're so talented for being able to do that, but you had to make it so that it looked like I would kicked you out, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, don't worry, I forgive you. And he's like, I didn't ask for that and I don't want it.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder, like, I don't think he did have this plan the whole time. It really, like, it's more that he's kind of flying by the seat of his pants and he's just, like, got enough cunning to get through it all.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, or in other people's views, it looks like he's planned it this whole time.
I mean, not to badmouth Gabriel Byrne's character, but, like, we don't really know what he's thinking a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, like, narrator the way that there is in a lot of noir stuff that gives us the way that, you know, that gives us insight to what he's thinking.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that we really have to go off is his dialogue and his actions. And his actions conflict with one another, you know?
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't say too terribly much. Like, in the opening scene, he doesn't speak while, like, Casper's in the room.
Yeah.
It's not, like, until Casper leaves that he starts talking, really. It doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't spell things out neat and tidy or wrap things up in a nice, neat little bow.
And I would say, you know how sometimes, like, a movie will meet you halfway, even though it's, like, still kind of difficult, you can jump on. I think you have to do all the work to get to this movie. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I don't want that to sound like a criticism. It's just, it's a movie you have to do work for.
Yeah.
And it's rewarding once you do. But it's, this is not a passive viewing movie. Which is odd because I really associate that with the Coen brothers a lot. Like, I feel like a lot of their stories are, they work on a deeper level, but you can also just sit back and be entertained by a lot of them.
I mean, watching Fargo, it was just sort of like, oh, this is like Coen Brothers 101.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what a Coen Brothers movie looks like. You know, you got a little comedy, you got a little macabre violence, you have a scheme gone awry, and that's how it goes. You know?
Yeah.
And that's how really more or less all their movies pan out. You know, even the ones that don't have a scheme per se, it usually is like, you know, someone's life suddenly is not going the way they planned or something like that.
Right.
In this instance, like, there's very definite schemes, but it's, you know, it's not a scheme to rob a bank or something. It's a scheme to get someone else to think that you're thinking this.
So you were talking about the humor in, like, Coen Brothers films in general?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite examples of their humor in this movie is when Casper has Tom over to kind of woo him by, like, offering to pay his betting debts if he returns Bernie to him. And Tom says, thanks, no thanks. Basically, he says, I asked you nicely. And then he walks out and then he's like, gotta fight Frankie.
Yeah.
And there's just, like, this long moment where nothing's happening.
Give me the hi-hat!
And then slowly Frankie realizes, like, oh, I'm supposed to beat him up. And Tom's like, wait, hold it. And then he takes the chair and whacks him in the face.
Jesus, Tom.
It's such a nice breath of fresh air, too, because the movie is so talk-dense, you know? But it's, like, it's really nice to have a few moments of, like, quiet and just nothing really happening for a minute and kind of digest everything that's going down. But it's also funny. It's like an uncomfortable funny, but
definitely uncomfortable funny.
It's pretty good. It's good awareness of what the film needs at that moment.
To jump to the end of this movie, and this is another morally ambiguous part. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
If we're supposed to root for the hero, like, it's hard to say that Tom is a hero.
Yeah.
Like, he's definitely trying to prevent, mob war. But that's really his one virtue. So the climax of the movie is him sort of outsmarting Bernie and killing him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sort of curious, like, is this a heroic moment? Like, is this the hero getting what they want?
I kind of saw it as like, and I was kind of looking at Tom's motivations as either being from emotions or being from his brain.
Okay.
And the first time that he didn't kill Bernie, he was acting on emotion. Like, he followed his heart.
Okay.
And this time around, when he says, like...
Look in your heart. Look in your heart.
What hurt?
In his mind, listening to your heart just gets everything fucked up.
I guess that would make sense, and that would sort of play into your hats being, like, higher thinking and higher reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Because, then, like, when he takes off his hat and has sex with Verna, like, he knows that it's bad, but he does it anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of what caused this whole mess in the first place, because, like, the reason that Leo doesn't want to kill Bernie is because he's in love with Verna. That's where he's coming from. That's where Tom is coming from anyway. Is he right? I don't know.
But I mean it does make sense, because logically Tom knows that if Bernie's out of the picture, if Casper King killed Bernie, that avoids a mob war.
Yeah.
Now he's also sleeping with Verna. Presumably he has emotions for her as well.
Right.
But he knows that this is what needs to happen in order to keep peace. And
right.
that, giving up Bernie is a small price to pay for peace. And when his emotions take the best of him, when he's out at Miller's Crossing and lets him go, like, that's what really puts him in a jam. Like, that's when things get bad for Tom.
Yeah.
Is when he lets his emotions run the show. And, so I guess that would make sense. The climax, even if maybe not heroic, is maybe him putting his logical side back in control of his actions.
And that's why at the very end he pulls the hat down, because then it's like, it's all I've got now.
Yeah.
I can't be an emotional person. I have to follow my hat.
Yeah. You know what I found the Coen brothers really like, and I think is important to them in casting?
What's that?
Voices.
Oh.
Watching a movie, while it's important to watch, I'm like, these would make great radio play actors.
Oh, yeah.
Casper, I don't remember the actor's name.
John Polito.
So he's been in tons of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very distinctive voice.
Yeah.
Oh, those fiery Mediterraneans.
Steve Buscemi has a distinctive voice.
Right.
What are you, nuts? We had pancakes for breakfast.
John Turturro.
Nobody fucks with the Jesus.
It made me realize that, when you watch a movie that's just a bunch of white people talking, none of them have distinguishable voices, really.
Yeah.
It can kind of make it hard to know what character's what or who's talking. And just having, like, a audible cue like that, it gives scenes a different flavor to have sort of different timbres of voices in different scenes.
Yeah, agreed.
And it was just something that really kind of became apparent in this movie. I think that's even why, like, in Fargo, why they gave her that accent and stuff like that. 'Cause it really lets you identify a character just by their voice.
Sure. I was just thinking, it's so interesting to have the role of homosexuality in this movie is less about character judgment and more about plot twistiness, which is, even though all the gay characters die in this, spoiler alert, it's kind of refreshing to not have that be the problem. It's more, like, there's several times where people bring it up, like, there's a part where Tom is talking to Casper about it, and he's, like, kind of giving him the eye, like, are you sure that you're not in love with him? He's sort of like, I think he says something like...
Of course, there's always that wild card when love is involved.
I know Mink is Eddie Dane's boy. But still, I don't make it that way.
And there's nothing to worry about.
Like, he just lays it out, like, period, and then it's done. Like, it's nice that it's, like, not used as a moral question. It's used as a plot device.
Yeah, it's sort of a way to create an allegiance between otherwise, characters that wouldn't know each other, maybe?
Yeah.
And have a connection? I
was thinking, like, yeah, duh. Of course Casper would have a gay person as his right-hand man, because then, like, you don't have to worry about a woman getting in the way.
Like Leo has.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of cool in a way that they use that just to make the plot more interesting.
And while, like, Steve Buscemi and the way that John Turturro plays the character might be, in a classic Hollywood sense, like the sissy, sort of, the Dane's not.
No, yeah. He's a badass.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, like, he's probably the toughest of the tough guys in this movie.
Yeah. So it's an interesting portrayal.
They all die, but at least we have a, different array of...
Yeah. I mean, like, there's 2 women characters in this movie, basically. So it's like...
Frances McDormand as the secretary.
Yeah, that's what I'm counting. So, I mean, like, this movie doesn't pass the Bechdel test.
Drop dead.
But that's not exactly the point of this movie. The point is, like, the twisty plot. It's a noir, basically. Yeah. It's like a gangster / noir that they... Because this is what they do. They take genre films and then they twist them on their ear, right?
Yeah.
And so this is taking a genre noir, Dashiell Hammett-style detective story, kind of. I guess it's a mobster story that they're doing. But, and just, like, making it as twisty as possible. Which is great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Once you know what's going on, like, it's almost...
Which is not an easy feat.
No, you have to... I recommend reading the plot synopsis before watching the movie.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, let it be spoiled, because it's more enjoyable when you know what's going on. A lot of the things I read today were like... There were several people who mentioned that they tear up during the opening credits of it, with like the score coming on and the beautiful shot of the trees and da-da-da.
Oboe?
Yeah, I don't know. But it just got me wondering, because I think I'm assuming that these were all written by straight men who were saying these things about this movie.
Uh-huh.
It got me thinking about, like, what makes it okay for a straight man to admit crying at a movie. And I feel like there's a very limited amount of movies that it's okay for a straight man to admit crying to.
Patton. Shane.
So I Googled movies guys can cry to, and you'd be surprised what's on most of those lists.
Milo and Otis.
One that was shocking to me is Armageddon. Like, that was on every list, where it's like, this is an okay movie to cry to if you're a man. Quote unquote man.
So, the older I get, the more easily I cry at a movie.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we don't all cry at true stories. But I definitely am more likely to cry at a movie now than I was, say, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, I just thought it was interesting, because I feel like it's okay for a man to cry when it comes to, like, brotherhood, or, like, father issues, or, like, going through war together. But, like, can you imagine a straight man crying at Brokeback Mountain?
Mm.
Like, it's obviously a movie that's, like, meant to make you have feels.
The ultimate bromance.
You think it's more of like a bromance?
The ultimate bromance.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I don't think I've ever heard of a straight man admitting to crying during that movie. But it just seems like the scope of emotions that straight men are allowed to feel at movies is so limited.
You know, they should reframe what's going on in Brokeback Mountain. It's not 2 gay cowboys, it's 2 men sharing each other's strength.
Yeah.
Then we might get some tears in the audience.
Anyway, it was just something I was thinking about, like, when is it okay? Quote unquote okay. And like, who decides which of these movies is okay? Marley and Me was on a lot of those lists, and it's like, give me a fucking
Was Harry and the Hendersons on there? That scenes when John Lithgow sends Harry back out into the woods.
Go!
Get out of here! Can't you see we don't want you anymore? Why can't you go back where you came from?
Go!
You don't belong here!
Everybody's allowed to cry at that scene. Wow, so guess what, Matt? Next week is episode 40.
Man, season closer.
Which means it's time for a...
The end of our Dirty 30s.
What have we got in store?
For this season's double feature, we're going to feature a director, a titan in gay cinema, we'll say. Pedro Almodovar. Or Almodovar. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. If we're going based off that newscaster in Los Angeles, it's Almodovar.
Gustavo Almodovar, Gustavo Almodovar, Gustavo Almodovar.
And that's how it's going to be from now on this podcast. So Almodovar's, both ends of the spectrum we're sort of reaching here. We're going to be doing Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, capture his kooky comedic sense, and then we will be going into his harrowing underbelly of deceit and deception with bad education.
It's going to be a good Technicolor time.
It's going to be a good season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's what I was going to say. Let's dangle and plug our junk.
Let's plug our junk. Follow us on Twitter at XRatedMovies.
You can send us an email. Clicky-clacky-clack. x.rated.movies@gmail.com.
Like, review, subscribe, and leave a 5-star rating or other stars on iTunes. It's the best way to get the word out there about our podcast.
Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, tell the real change person on the street. Tell whomever you can.
Yeah, because our jaw's tired, so y'all gotta start doing a little bit of the work.
Yeah, my jaw doctor says give it a rest.
Yeah, I've been icing it all day.
So yeah, next week we've got a double feature.
Yeah.
Almodovar's Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown plus Bad Education.
I'll see you there.
I'll see you there too. I just gotta get this wart off my fanny because it's giving me the fidgets.